So today I've set a challenge to myself on the ladder. My rules are simple, I can only play cards with 1 CMC and I'm not allowed to play red. This was definitely a huge challenge for me today. Hey everyone, Hex here, and today I want to have some silly fun on the ladder, and this was certainly exactly that. If you have any challenges for me to do on Arena, let me know. And as always though, if you haven't yet, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. It massively helps out, and needless to say, I really appreciate all your support you give this channel. But onto this deck, and I'm going to be using an artifact themed maximum 1 CMC deck in green and white, revolving around Teething Wurmlet, Gingerbrute, and a whole bunch of tricks. Let's start with the Wurmlet. It's a 1-drop 1/1 worm that gets a +1/+1 counter the first time an artifact ETBs under your control each turn. You also gain a life, and it has death touch if you control 3 or more artifacts. So in this deck, this on turn 1 is a must answer threat. Most of our permanents are artifacts, and if you can get some good early damage through, then the death touch makes it super viable against the bigger threats later on. The best turn 2 play after dropping the worm is definitely Gingerbrute. This card is the glue of the deck. It's a 1/1 artifact creature food golem with haste that for 1 colorless can be blocked only by creatures with haste. Most of the time this little common can attack each turn unopposed for just 1 mana, and then load this with power and you can get through a whole load of extra damage very quickly. The rest of the creatures are artifacts that pair beautifully with our theme and the worm. We've got Swooping Lookout. It's a 1/2 flying vigilant construct. Was a great limited card, but here does superb at attacking and blocking when needed. We have some Skrelvs for protection and ensuring that we can get those killing blows through, and Yotian Frontliner. This little 1/1 for 1 gives a target attacking creature +1/+1 until end of turn when it attacks, and you get to unearth it too when it dies. Sometimes I like to suicide this into a large creature just to power up my brute a little bit, then do the same the following turn too. Power boosting spells we have include Homestead Courage, Audacity, and the adventure side of the cheeky house mouse, Squeak By. Clearly this can be played as a creature too, which is great value in a deck like this, but Squeak By does a lot later on in the game when you need to squeeze through that tiny little bit of extra damage, especially if they have a massive blocker. Combat tricks include Giant Growth for extra beef to your attack, but I've been predominantly using this as a defensive tactic to boost creatures when they've been targeted with cutdowns, burns, or when you're blocking. We have Loran's Escape and Tyvar Stands, which are crucial cards here to protect our creatures when needed. And we have 2 of my surprise favourite cards in this deck, Elspeth's Smite and Eater of Virtue. The Smite is perfect against mono red, and trust me, I've played mono red a lot today. And the Virtue has a fair bit of synergy in this deck because it's a 1-drop equipment that equips for 1 and gives +2/+0. When the equipped creature dies, exile it, and as long as the exiled creature has flying, the equipped creature has flying too. The same is true for a bunch of other abilities. Now our deck contains flying, haste and vigilance, so this card does so much for us today, and I'm surprised it doesn't actually see more play. We've got just the 20 lands here, which is plenty, and that is the deck. So this janky deck was a whole load of fun to play today. Without the 1 CMC restriction, I can certainly see how it can be improved to be more competitive, and I'm certainly going to try that. Anyway though, if you have any thoughts on this deck or cards I should be playing going forward, you can let me know in the comments below. You can find me over on Twitter, and as always, thank you for watching. Alright, on the draw here, and I do like having the Wurmlet in my opening hand. We get to follow up with either the Frontliner or the Eater of Virtue, so we'll see what we're up against. Opponent did mulligan, and that is a Ziatora's Proving Ground. So let's drop our Teething Wurmlet here. Just a 1/1 for now. Opponent with an island and a Courier's Briefcase. Okay, and we find a 3rd mana, which is crucial in our deck. We only got the 20 lands in here, which should be fine for a low-cost deck, but hitting that 3rd mana is important. Opponent likes our Frontliner turn 2 play to get the Wurmlet to attack as a 2/2. Obviously the Frontliner is an artifact which boosts the Wurmlet, but next turn we can attack with both our creatures, and then we've got a Giant Growth to pump the Frontliner if needed, and the Wurmlet would go up to a 3/3, as when the Frontliner attacks, it does pump another creature that we have. But opponent finds a Leyline Bind in there with their Invasion of Ixalan, and they go to attack it with the 1/1. Well, I'm not blocking that. We could have blocked. We could have then pumped with Giant Growth. We could have played the Tyvar stand to give our creature indestructible, but those are crucial cards. We do find a third one. They're going to be crucial going forward, especially with the opponent having cards like Leyline Binding. But this is a prime time to play our Eater of Virtue. So I'm going to actually attach it to the Frontliner. Now, when the creature that the Virtue is attached to dies, it actually exiles, which is a little bit of a nombo here with the Frontliner, but I want to diversify my attack a little bit here. Put it with a Leyline Binding here, and what do they go after? They go after the Teething Wurmlet. Well, we can cast our Tyvar stand here for 0 to save that one. So opponent's going to take 7 damage. They're going to go all the way down to 11, and if we are playing against a ramp deck like this, this is an extremely good start by us. They do like our plays, it looks like. So we've got to try and beat them before they get to 7 mana, I would have thought, in case Atraxa or Atali comes down. And they have Invasion of Zendikar to find 2 more mana. Okay, well hopefully they attack with this 1-1. Because okay, if they had attacked with that 1-1, we would have actually had lethal this turn. But we don't, so I'm just going to attack like this. And surely they put the 1-1 in front of our 3-1. Well, yes. And I'm just going to save our Frontliner. So yeah, opponent would have died there. Because we could have played the Tyvar stand for 1 to pump one of our other creatures. But they're down to 7. And we do actually have lethal on board with our hand. With our creatures on the battlefield. Opponent with Eternal Wanderer. Now, they better make a 2-2 here, because they're I'm pretty sure they're going to be dead if they target one of our creatures with the +1. And they do. Well, we get to Tyvar stand here. We'll just Tyvar stand for 1. And it saves our creature. And we're going to attack for lethal against a ramp deck with Eternal Wanderer, Leyline Binding, and I'm super proud of our 1 CMC deck there. Nice. Alright, on the play. We'll keep this. It's not the greatest hand we've got. We don't have a Gingerbrute, and we certainly don't have a Wurmlet. But we have a Frontliner, so we will start there. Cheeky House Mouse, predominantly used in our deck as a pump spell, a pre-combat pump spell, but obviously we can cast it as a creature if need be. Opponent with a Mountain and a Monastery Swiftspear. Okay, well, if they're just mono-red, I say just mono-red, I've played a lot of mono-red today. Then we have the Elspeth Smite in our hand, which does 3 damage to target attacking or blocking creature, and if the creature were to die, it would be exiled. We definitely lucked out there with a Gingerbrute off the top, and we attack the opponent down to 17. Second Mountain. Let's see what they want to do. Well, they go to attacks. Okay, well, I'm happily just take this damage if need be, but as I predicted, it was a Stolen Vitality. I thought they were going to have like a Monstrous Rage or something, and we can react to that with our Smite. Didn't want to cast the Smite before we pass the damage. And I'm just going to squeak by our Gingerbrute here to squeak in some more damage here. Plus we get to cast our Mouse as a 2-1. And I guess this is 4 damage. So opponent down to 13. We do have Giant Growth, so we can do a little bit of damage at instant speed. But I like the Giant Growth in our deck as a defensive maneuver. So if they were to target one of our creatures with a Play with Fire, for example, we can save it with Giant Growth. Invasion of Target for our opponent. And they're going to target one of our creatures. They target the Frontliner, which is odd because we can just cast that from the graveyard for its flashback cost or its unearth cost. So I don't care about that. We'll let that one go. But yeah, we could have just cast the Giant Growth there to save our creature. We'll keep that in our hand though, in case we need to get through some damage at the end. But Skrelv is great this turn. And then we will unearth our Frontliner and do another 5 damage to our opponent. They are all the way down to 8. So they better have a decent turn here because we're threatening... I guess we can do 7 damage next turn, but one thing I like about our deck is pretty much every single top deck does something immediately, so I like where we are. Nahiri's Warcrafting onto their invasion, okay. So they're going to get the Defiant Thundermaw, which is a 4-4. when it attacks, it does 2 damage. Okay, that is a Teething Wurmlet. Probably actually our worst draw in our we could have got there. And opponent has shown us that they haven't necessarily got any removal. I feel like we would have already seen it. I guess we saw the Warcraft in, but I'm just going to activate the Skrelv, and I'm just going to get in some damage to take them down to 5. Now clearly they might have removal here, and we might regret using the Skrelv, but I was keen to get some damage through. With Giant Growth in our hand, we could easily win next turn. Lightning Strike on our Skrelv, which is fine. They have 2 cards left. Lightning Strike on our Gingerbrute, okay. So we could save it now. But I guess then they might not attack. Yeah, we'll just let that go. I'm still confident that pretty much everything we draw off the top of our deck is going to be gas. And yet the Thundermaw targets our mouse. Again, we could save it with Giant Growth, but no need. So any artifact off the top here will pump our Wurmlet. Another Wurmlet. Okay, that is not an artifact, but you know what this is? This is lethal next turn. They've only got the 1 card in their hand, and as long as it's not a burn spell, I think we should be quite good here. Surely they're going to attack with the 4/4. Mechanized Warfare. Okay, so hopefully no board wipe here. And there isn't one. Opponent targets our Wurmlet with their Thundermaw. And they pass the turn. And that's an Audacity. Well, it doesn't really matter too much. We're going to cast it onto our Wurmlet. We're going to attack. Does this go through? I think it does. I think we've just taken down a mono red deck with our 1 CMC deck. Nice. Alright, on the play, and I mean, this is one of our better hands. So, Wurmlet, turn 1. And then next turn we get to play the Frontliner or the Lookout, which will pump the Wurmlet here, so that's got to be nice. Opponent with 8 planes and lay down arms. Okay, well, fair enough. We have more creatures where that come from, though, and we'll cast the Lookout here. And this time I'm just going to hold open the Tyvar stand. I don't really want to just keep wasting all my creatures for the sake of it. Virtue of Loyalty for our opponent. Well, the Lookout, fantastic against a lot of these decks, actually, because we can just fly over the top, and our Gingerbrute here can literally just attack through the 2/2, so we're going to get a little bit of damage through here. 2/2, not very relevant here against our attackers, and Takasia's welcome for our opponent. And they attack us with their 2/2. Not a problem for us. We can just do the same as what we did last turn. And another Frontliner. Okay. Well, I'm going to cast Squeak By here, and I'm just going to do it onto our Lookout just so we can get through an extra damage. We'll attack our opponent for 3 here, holding open the stand. And this is kind of what this deck's about. Getting through as much damage as possible, and then opponent realizing nearer the end that they're down to like 3 or 4 life, and then we find a way to get that extra damage through. Opponent with a Regal Bunnycorn, drawing off the Takasia's welcome, and Ossification. So this is why we've been holding open the Tyvar stand. So we're up against a pretty sort of a good deck, actually. I've been playing this sort of mono-white, mid-range, tokeny kind of style of deck a lot as well, and I feel like it's pretty strong. So I'm very interested to see how we're going to cope with this, especially with a massive bunny coming at us. I'm going to play the Frontliner here and attack the opponent for 2 more damage. They're down to 13. We're still on 20. We do have a Smite in our hand to deal with this 2/2, and the opponent does cast the Virtue of Loyalty. Okay, so that does make the bunny a 5/5. They attack us with both their creatures. We're going to smite this 2/2. I was considering double blocking the bunny and then smiting it as well, but gonna just let that go through. And if we can just keep sort of plucking away with damage here and there, maybe holding a blocker back every now and again, especially with the Vigilant Swooping Lookout blocking their bunny. We might actually get there here. So we find another Gingerbrute. And we have no spells in our hand to hold open. And I'm going to suicide the Frontliner here into their bunny just to get through an extra damage by targeting our Gingerbrute. And they go down to 9. Let's see what they want to follow up with, though. They have a lot of mana here. Another Takasi is welcome. Okay, so I don't know if we're being lucky against our opponent here, but they haven't really found anything for us to be too concerned about yet. But I guess the bunny is a 7/7 now, and we are down to 10. So we will unearth the Frontliner again. We did find another Gingerbrute. I mean, I can't just keep casting these Gingerbrutes. I need to just hold back slightly in case they have a board wipe. But we'll get through as much damage as we can now. The Swooping Lookout is going to be a vigilant creature, so having it back on defense in case they do find a way to get this bunny up to 10 power. But opponent down to 5 already, and I'm telling you, this deck, it just gets through damage, and before you know it, the opponent, like I said, is down to 5, and again, any giant growth off the top or Audacity is going to be lethal for us. They get in there with their bunny, and I'm going to just take this damage. I mean, it's kind of risky in case they can make maybe like a resolute reinforcements there to pump up their bunny, but we need to find a way to win this game and not losing my creatures is certainly not going to allow that, as we find a Tyvar stand there. So, a bit of thinking on this turn, and I've decided to go with the 1 Gingerbrute and 1 Swooping Lookout attack. We can't kill them this turn. I'm pretty sure I did the math like 4 or 5 times. But what we can do is knock them down to try and kill them next turn. And we definitely need 2 blockers back for these 2 creatures. I think I should have played the Frontliner there, because then that would allow us next turn to attack with it as an unearther. So it would be a creature that I'd be fine to block with. But the opponent makes another Mirrex token, so both their creatures they're going to be attacking with are lethal. Here comes the Wandering Emperor. I guess they're going to... They go to exile the Gingerbrute. I guess we just save it. We need this for next turn. I don't think it makes a difference too much if we let that go and we use the Tyvar stand next turn to boost one of our creatures. But the life gain I don't want them to get from the Wandering Emperor. But we need to double block here, unfortunately. Yeah, so if we'd played the Frontliner, we could have used the Frontliner to block. Doesn't matter though, we find an Audacity off the top, and Gingerbrute and Audacity is lethal for us here. So, absolutely fantastic. That's why the Gingerbrute's such a great card. Opponent good games us, and maybe we were a little bit lucky at the end, but we got there. Alright, on the draw. And we have a decent hand, it looks like. So we'll play the Swooping Lookout turn 1 here. Opponent with Selesnya colours and a Botanical Brawler. Okay, so this could get out of hand very quickly. As you notice, we have a Boon of Safety in our hand. That's a card I ended up cutting, but was in the original deck. Didn't need the Boon and the Loran's Escape and Tyvar's stand. But we'll get in there with the Gingerbrute and the Lookout here. Opponent down to 18. Yeah, obviously this Brawler is going to be really annoying for us. It's trample. It's going to have a ton of counters on it. I'm not sure how we're going to deal with it. We only have the 1 removal in the deck in the Elspeth Smite. But that's not going to be able to deal with this Brawler if it continues gaining counters. And opponent with the Siege Veteran is going to start enabling that. But they do attack into our Lookout, and we're using the Giant Growth there on defense. Can clear that, and we do find another Giant Growth. So Homestead Courage here. I'm just going to cast it onto our, probably the Gingerbrute. We're lacking a second white mana, which is a little bit annoying. So we'll get in the damage where we can. Put it down to 15. We have another Giant Growth. So if they want to attack us with this Veteran, I'm fine with that. Here's Fight Rigging. I did not expect that card. I appreciate that card. I love this card. I am yet to play it in a green-white deck, though. So, obviously, they're not going for the turn 3 6-power creature. They're going for a different aspect on that. But I think I'm going to sacrifice my Gingerbrute here to get rid of this Veteran. And we find another Gingerbrute. I mean, we'll use the Forest to cast it, and we'll just attack the opponent here. Guess we cast the Homestead Courage first to get an extra point of damage through. There's no point holding open mana for the removal spells, I don't think. I think they're inclined to want to play a creature now. It's a Botanical Brawler for them. Now they've got to be worried about another Giant Growth. We've done it twice to them this game. There's the little cheeky house mouse. I seem to always draw this card. Started off with 4 copies of that in my deck, went down to 2, could probably end up cutting it completely, but it has a tiny bit of versatility, and allowing you to use its Squeak Bite is absolutely vital, especially if things like this Brawler get out of hand. We can just attack straight through it. Opponent with a second copy of Fight Rigging. Okay, so this Brawler is going to be a 5/5 this turn. I guess they're going to attack with it because they can't really block our creatures anyway. Yep, they get in there with their 5/5. I reckon they're reluctant to attack, especially as we could have a Giant Growth. I'm going to just use the Boon of Safety here because this allows us to scry, and I think we need to scry into something good. I know the Brawler has Trample. Guess we save a couple of damage, but I really want to get a scry off here, and as you saw, we had a land on top, which I don't think I want, even though it is white mana. Looking for something a little bit better. Swooping Lookout is another white card, but it's a pretty decent card for us as it gives us another attacker for next turn. So the 2 Fight Riggings here are going to push the Brawler up to a 7-power creature, but they're only going to get the trigger off the Hideaway trigger off one of the Fight Riggings. So fingers crossed it's nothing like a Titan, which I think would be too much for us. It's a Virtue of Loyalty, and I think we can deal with that, you know? Although this is a 7/7 coming at us, it's going to be an 8/8 end of turn, and it's going to be untapped. Sorry, yeah, untapped. I think this is okay for us. Fingers crossed. There is Audacity. And I think this is lethal, isn't it? This is 6 damage. Making sure we're using the Forest there to... obviously the Forest to cast the Audacity. Using the other Boseiju here can give our Gingerbrute unblockable. This is 6 damage coming through, and we have a protection spell in our hand. Oh my goodness, this is going to be... It's Fateful Absence for our opponent. We cast our Loran's Escape. This is going to be a fantastic win if they don't have another removal spell, and I don't think they do. Gingerbrute on the top. And this is lethal. I can't believe we won that game against a Fight Rigging deck there.